You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 160.3. Hanson Crafton reacts to the weekend in boxing with the Inoue Kim fight on Friday and Hanson's live experience at some professional boxing in Louisville on Saturday.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Hanson, you saw some good fighting this weekend, including some live, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, first Friday morning, got to see the great Inoue, and again, he did not let me down. I woke up early, was watching as I was getting ready for work, and got to see a spectacular knockout. Um, Inoue looked good. He got him out of there in 4 rounds.
A little earlier
At
than
one,
you predicted.
yeah, at one point in the fourth round, there's a clip going around on social media. So I think the guy's name was Lee, but anyway, hits him with a good shot. He'd been hitting him with some good shots the whole fight, but I think he was trying to psych himself up. But there's a point in the fourth where Inoue hits him, and the guy like kind of motions for him to bring it on, and then he hits him again. He backs him up to the corner, and the guy like motions again, like kind of like hit me on the chin, and then Inoue hit him on his chin and knocked him out.
Wow.
So, yeah, the announcer was like, "Be careful what you wish for."
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a great performance. Good way to start the weekend. And then Saturday,
Wait, hold on, hold
Saturday
on.
night.
Before we move on to Saturday, what's next for Inoue? Do you know?
Um, I don't. I know they've got a couple fights they're talking about. He was supposed to fight somebody before this guy. Lee was actually a fill-in for somebody else. So I don't know. I know he's belt chasing right now. Like I said, he's been moving up in weight his last few fights. I think he's trying to get as many belts as he can. So I don't really know where he's headed next. I know they've talked about Tank, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Tank's just too big for Inoue. Inoue's moved up, I'd say, probably as much as he can. He can maybe go one more weight class, but with Tank at 35, I just don't think it's possible for Inoue to get up to 35. And I don't know if I would want to see him, if he's going to be that much of a size difference. I don't know if it's even worth watching.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Tell me about what you saw Saturday in Louisville.
So Saturday was super fun. It was the Superstars of Boxing event here in Louisville at the Delta Center. There was action packed, three really good fights. The kid champion that was there, he looked really good. Um, yeah, I don't really know what type of competition he was facing. Sometimes with these boxing, especially guys early in their career, their first few fights, you've got a few cupcakes in there. Um, this might have been a cupcake, but with that, he still looked very good. He was long and active. He had a really good jab, and then he had a really nice straight left, and that's what ended up ending the fight. I think he got him out of there in the second round, but he looked really good.
What weight
Like I
division
said,
was that?
47,
Okay.
long, skinny kid. Like I said, he really worked behind that jab. Looked like he had good foot movement. There was a point where the guy charged him at this early in the fight. He had a really nice step back and then countered the guy with a 1-2 as he stepped back. So the footwork looked good. Like I said, he's long, had good range. Looked like he had some snap on his punches as well. So he will be one that I'll be keeping an eye on for future events. And then the co-main and main, I mean, they did not let anybody down. I mean, those two fights, the co-main was Choi. He was doing the state championship against Josh Flores. Like I said, going into it, that was the one I was really looking forward to because Choi, I saw him fight before, and he's just a banger. Um, and Saturday was the exact same thing. I mean, he got in there and he's so surprising because the people who don't know fighting, he may look like he's slow and sloppy, and you'd be like, oh, well, I don't know how this guy could take anybody. But he just has power that is out of this world. I mean, he was in there with the Flores kid, and at the start of the fight, the Flores guys landed a couple of jabs. He's using his speed a little bit. He was kind of getting in Choi's face, but that's the mistake you make with Choi. I mean, he kind of wants those type of fights. From what I've seen in his 2 fights, he craves that type of fight, that phone booth type of fight.
Mm.
He wants that. So the kid was getting in there, and I think he got comfortable standing in front of Choi, and then boom, here comes the right hand. He drops him. Kid gets up, shakes it off a little bit. He gets right back in the fire. And me and the guy I was watching with, we were literally saying as it was happening, it's like, man, you can't get comfortable standing in front of Choi. He's got to get on his bike. He's got to move, because he did. He went right back into the fire, stood in front of him, and then he got put to sleep. And it was a legit, real knockout. I mean, both his legs went one each way as he fell down. I mean, it was Choi's got big power, and that was a real exciting fight. I think nobody was sitting down, um, probably for the last minute of that fight. I mean, it was a legit gunfight in the middle of the ring, and I mean, like I said,
Those are
everybody
the
got
best
their money's
ones.
worth. Yeah, I mean,
Those are the best fights.
it was exactly what I was kind of expecting. Like
Two
I said,
aggressive
man,
guys.
yes, and they just, Choi does have a little bit of head movement. I noticed because I was trying to watch, what he's doing in these firefights, and he does have a little bit of head movement, but it's like I said, last week. I think he just knows that he can get to you before you can get to him, and he does. I mean, it was great. I mean, he landed 2 big shots, and the guy was done. I mean, it was they had to get the smelling salts out there. I mean, it was big time. And then the main event right after that, Juicy came out, and it was one of those where it was like, how do you follow that up? Well, he followed it up with a first round knockout of his own.
Oh,
So I mean, it was just great action, and with the Juicy fight, like I said, the Romans guy was game. I knew he was a dog from watching his first fight, but my biggest question going into that was, will his toughness be able to close that skill gap? And it just wasn't. He
the
just
answer
wasn't
was
able to
no.
do it. No, I mean, it was very apparent from early on. Juicy came in, and he does what Juicy does. Juicy loves to put pressure on, especially early in fights. He loves to see if he can back you up, and he backed the guy up. Now the guy did land a couple of clean counters at the start of the fight, but I don't think they did anything. They didn't hurt Juicy or give him anything to be worried about, and you could kind of tell that he kind of saw that was all he had. And so he just kept circling and pushing the guy against the ropes. Then he finally got him against the ropes at one point, and he just unleashed a combination and knocked the guy out. Like it was one of those where he, fell in between the ropes, and yeah, it was just it was one of those, like I said, his the toughness wasn't able to close that gap. I mean, Juicy was so much faster, stronger. I mean, they both looked like they're in good shape, but Juicy looked like he really was in really good shape for that fight. Yeah, I mean, it went exactly how I thought it would.
And what's his record now?
Juicy's, I think he's 9-1 now.
All right. And how about Choi?
Choi, I've only seen Choi fight twice. I haven't really dug much into him, but he's also just starting, so I'd say he's probably got under 10 fights as well. I don't think he's got any losses. I would say the only thing with Choi is I think he got into it a little later. I think he's a little older. Like Juicy, is in his early 20s. I think Choi might be in his late 20s, early 30s. But they definitely are two guys to keep an eye on. I know the promoter said he's got something big planned for May. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure they'll both be on there. And then they'll probably also have Selassie Bay on there, which is the kid from Jeffersonville, Indiana, who's he's really fun to watch too. He's another one that I think he's at 54, and I've seen him fight twice. He's had 2 big knockouts there as well. So he's another one. But he had just had a fight at the end of last year in Texas somewhere, so he wasn't able to be on this card. But I think he'll be on the one in May, and he's a guy to watch out for as well. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what all they do with this card in May. Sounds like it's shaping up to be a really another exciting card.
All right, Hanson, what's next?
We've got UFC this weekend, so I'll be back Thursday to talk about Israel Adesanya fighting in UFC Saudi Arabia. That's
Mm,
a fun card. There's three pretty good fights on there. So that'll be an interesting one this weekend. Couple fights with some title implications on there. Um, so we'll be back in there this weekend with some more fun fights.
can't wait. Thanks so much to Hanson for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report. For those of you who don't know, Hanson worked for me at the News and Tribune in Jeffersonville and New Albany. I loved working with him so much that even though he is not from Central Indiana, I had to find a role for him on the Central Indiana Sports Report. And thank you for listening. Please go like, subscribe, or follow at Spotify, SoundCloud, Amazon, Apple, and YouTube so you don't miss a single segment. And it would be also be very helpful to us if you would tell a friend about the Central Indiana Sports Report. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.